Hello, welcome to another edition of the VOD Weekly News Recap. I am Glorious Haddjatou Njie. Good evening. Now let's look at the headlines. Gambia to face Mali, Congo and Sudan in 2023 AFCON group stages. Federation of Gambia Muslim Students Organization holds inter-school competition. UTG students complain of poor management. Market vendors express concern over price hikes. At least 11 people died in truck crashes over the week. The Gambia Victim Center raised concerns over nomination Speaker and Co of the National Assembly. Mali receives 2 Russian military helicopters. South Africa declares state of disaster after deadly floods. UN investigators blocked from site of suspected killings in Mali. Libya's rival officials concluded election talks without a deal. Peru copper mine halts operation amidst protests in Las Bambas. Le Pen and Macron clash in a heated French election debate. Civilians still trapped as Mariupol evacuation fails. World Bank and IMF warns of huge buildup of debt in poorest nations. Germany rules out immediate end to Russian oil imports. Those were the headlines. Now let's look at the news in details. Gambia has been drawn in Group G against Mali, Congo and South Sudan in the 2023 African Cup of Nations group stage qualifiers during the draw held on Tuesday in South Africa for the tournament taking place in the Ivory Coast in May-June next year. The draw was welcomed with mixed reactions by Gambians. While many think it is a balanced one, others think that the Gambia will have to work hard to beat Congo and South Sudan to be second available place behind potential group favorites Mali. However, the unavailability of the independent stadium has made the Gambia to turn Senegal on the possibility of hosting her home matches at the Diamniadio Stadium. Meanwhile, a team of officials are said to have traveled to Dakar to finalize the arrangement. On the other hand, the GFF said they are doing their best in order for the match to be played in front of home crowd right here and also focusing on getting the stadium fixed as soon as possible. Federation of Gambia Muslim Students Organization holds inter-school competition. Haddjatou Njie reports.
The Federation of the Gambia Muslim Students Organization FEGAMSO on Monday held its annual inter-school Quranic recitation and speech competition at the Islamic Supreme Council. The Quranic recitation was held during this competition, and in participation were the upper basic schools like Latir Kunda Upper Basic School, Bakoche Upper Basic, Abuko Upper Basic, Horaya Academic, Talinding Islamic Institute, Tadem Islamic Institute, Burkama Islamic Institute, and Imam Malik Islamic Institute from the Greater Banjul and West Coast region. Senior schools and tertiary institutes took part in the speech competition. These schools were listed as St. Augustine Senior, Nusrat Senior, Masrut Senior, St. Peter's Tech Senior, St. Joseph Senior, Mindau Senior, Greater Banjul Senior, Ikra Foundation, Sheikh Hamdan Senior, Muslim Students Association of UTG, Islamic Solidarity Organization, and Schools of Medicine of the Gambia College, Solidarity Association of the Gambia College, and International Open University. Welcoming the participants, Famara Jaune, their public relations officer, gave a brief history of the organization, and according to him, FEGAMSO is the umbrella body tasked with the responsibility of coordinating the affairs and activities of all school-based Islamic clubs and societies in the country. He further stated that the organization was founded in 1995 with the sole aim of propagating Islamic among Muslim students in the country. Sheikh Tijan Jaju, a founding member of the organization, encouraged Muslims youth to be more proactive in their religion. He advised them to seek more knowledge in order for them to worship Allah in the proper manner. Haddjatou Njie reporting for VOD.
The University of the Gambia UG during the week persistently complains over inadequate classrooms for lectures at the Brikama campus. Speaking to a concerned student at the UTG, she expressed her dissatisfaction over poor accommodation on the campus, and she further outlined the insufficient availability of chairs in the classes and the unreliability of bus service. Following the complaints, the UTG Student Union issued statements on Tuesday, 19th April, to confirm some progress being made by the college administration, following persistent complaints of students over inadequate classrooms for lectures at the Brikama campus. According to a communication from the Office of the Students' Union Secretary General, stated that the insufficiency of classroom was a result of an ongoing examination at the Gambia College, which has offered some of its classrooms to UTG for lecturing purposes. Market vendors expressed concern over price hikes. Haddjatou Njie reports.
The prices of food commodities in the country have shot up lately in the market across the country. Visiting market vendors, vegetables were noticeably expensive, and the price of a bag of rice is now badged at least 1,900, while a 20-liter gallon of oil cost almost 2,200. Meanwhile, a bag of onions, sugar, and other food commodities have all risen overnight. And this has even left tongue whipped over skyrocketing nature of foodstuffs as the Muslims' Ramadan feast is fast approaching its end. Some traders say that the reason for charging extra for these essential commodities is the increasement price in the international market. Mariama Fati, a woman selling at the market, said that the market is really hard at this moment and that customers are complaining a high cost of commodity in the market. Speaking to Musaba, he said that prices cannot go down even if the Ramadan ends, because the Gambia cannot control the price market outside Gambia, and it's not only in Ramadan that the things are expensive, but it's where they are coming from. Giving an example that if things are bought and imported into the Gambia, there is a price that these businesses are selling it, and that's the actual price the businessmen that want it are going to buy it for. And if you buy it there, then you have to transport it to the Gambia. Then if supposed to come by sea and it gets to the port, and there is no place for it to bring down its stuff, so it has to wait and be in the line for its turn to be able to bring it down. So if it takes 3 or 4 days at the port waiting, the port will be charging its stay. So when they finally drop the things, they also have to pay the delayance. So the store owner calculating its expenditure, and it's high. So obviously the things cannot be cheap, and the final consumers, Musa said. Haddjatou Njie reporting for VOD.
At least 11 people died of truck crashes within the week in the Latrikunda Sabiji, Somita Foni, caused by overloaded truck. Buba Tunkara and Omar Jajusi died after they were crushed beneath a huge pile of goods when the truck carrying the goods lost balance and fell on its side last week in Latrikunda Sabiji. According to a family member, they were returning home from watching a football match at the stadium. It was said that the truck was overloaded beyond its capacity after bribing customs officers and GCCI officials, according to a crane operator at the Banjul seaport. This is not the first time or second time this is happening. Overloaded trucks falling on the ground or containers falling from trucks continue to be a major cause of traffic fatalities. On this particular occasion, the government should be blamed for the loss of lives, because GCCI officials and custom officers are those who determine the load of every transit truck before leaving the port. It's their signature on the tag placed on the truck that shows a green line that it's safe to go. So they are responsible, a crane operator at the Banjul seaport told Watson Gambia. He added, they take bribes to allow the trucks to be overloaded to cut costs because they know the trucks would not kill their family members. These trucks are meant to carry a certain number of volume, but not what they are doing at the ports here. Another accident involving an overloaded truck from the Banjul seaport happened on Wednesday night on route Somita in Fonyi, and the truck was broken into half. Reports reaching us reveals that over 8 people died instantly and many more are fighting for their lives right now. The Gambia Victim Center raised concerns over nomination speakers and co of the National Assembly. Haddjatou reports.
Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations during a press conference raised concerns over nomination of Haddjatou Njie as Speaker and Haddjatou Njie as Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, and said that they have written a letter to the head of state. Victims Center says President Adama Barrow has betrayed victims of Yahya Jammeh regime by appointing the keen followers of Yahya Jammeh to the National Assembly. Adama Jallo, the National Victim Coordinator speaking on behalf of the Victim Center, said that they are afraid if the President will really come up with a fair white paper regarding the recommendation of the TRRC after him appointing Haddjatou Njie and Haddjatou Njie, who were working for the former dictator Yahya Jammeh. In quotation, we are all worried that there was an interview Haddjatou made in one of the media outlets saying that he didn't accept the TRRC recommendations and he believed that Yahya Jammeh have not done any injustice, and because of that, we are worried a person who is having that mindset about Yahya Jammeh won't read anything against him. The Victim Center wrote a letter to the President that stated, Mr. President, it is with deep shock and painful feeling of betrayal by the Gambia Center of Human Rights Violations came to learn of your nomination of Haddjatou Njie and Haddjatou Njie as members of the National Assembly. Even worse is to realize that you have identified them to be the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, which came to pass on the first day of sitting of the 6th Legislature of 14 April 2022. We are hugely concerned with your nominations of those two individuals as they do not only represent the brutal dictatorship the country endured for 20 years, but they were also a key pillar of the power behind the tragedy of former President Yahya Jammeh since 1997. Haddjatou was the member of the National Assembly until 2017, half of which period served as the majority leader together with Sidia and the rest of the APRC NAMS. Those two individuals played a leading role in strengthening dictatorship as lawmakers who failed to provide constitutional oversight as well as legal reform necessary to prevent and hold accountable perpetrators of human rights violations under the APRC regime. Rather, they deliberately and actively reneged on their constitutional duty of holding the executive accountable, but instead decided to aid and abet tyranny which had consumed the lives of scores of Gambians, including their own colleagues. While you were part of the opposition, instance, Haddjatou and Haddjatou provided to Jammeh in the legislature what the junglers did for him in the security sector. Haddjatou reporting for VOD.
Now let's look at the news across our borders. New shipment of Russian equipment for the Malian Armed Force has been received in Bamako by the ruling Malian junta. We are receiving this second batch of military equipment from Russia. This is the manifestation of a very fruitful partnership with the Russian state. A statement from the Directorate of Information and Public Relations of the Armed Force on Monday reads, the official tweet account of Mali's president posted images of the offloading of the cargo from the Russian cargo plane that brought the equipment to Bamako's international airport. The colonels who took power by force in August 2020 in Mali in the midst of security turmoil has drawn close to Russia at the same time as they turned away from France. Against the backdrop of a diplomatic crisis with the junta, Paris announced in February the withdrawal of its soldiers' deployment in Mali, an operation due to it being completed this summer. On April 31st, Bamako received 2 Russian combat helicopters and radars, male Mi-35P attack helicopters, and 59N6TE mobile radar system, according to the specialized newsletter African Intelligence. If this equipment allows the head of the junta, Colonel Assimi Goïta, to personally claim to have strengthened the Malian arm with the support of Russia, it is in fact former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, overthrown by junta, who is behind the order, writes African Intelligence in a note published in 11th April. South Africa declares state of disaster after deadly floods. Haddjatou Njie reports.
President Cyril has declared a state of national disaster in South Africa. This comes a week after terrible floods left at least 443 people dead in the Durban area on the East Coast. The cabinet met in special session and decided to declare a state of national disaster. The head of state said in a televised address on Monday, April 18th, referring to the situation as a humanitarian disaster. "Tonight we are in a nation united in mourning," added the president, who visited the country on Wednesday. Some 10,000 troops have been deployed to the affected areas to assist the overwhelmed relief effort. The week-long downpour has led to a deadly flood and landslides in the KZN, where most of the casualties have so far been recorded. According to the National Meteorological Institute, the rainfall has eased since the weekend, and no further flooding is expected in the coming days. Thousands of people have been displaced. Some areas have been without water and electricity since Monday. Water tankers are trying to bring in drinking water, but roads and bridges are still cut off. Homeless people are clearing the roads in exchange for a few coins from few motorists. Nearly 80% of the drinking water network is out of order, according to local authorities, who warn that it will take time to restore it. The army has deployed plumbers and electricians. Air support is being stepped up to bring in goods and water purification system, and tents for evacuees will be set up. Troops supported by helicopters were already present in recent days alongside police and rescue workers in emergency operation. Rescue workers remain on alert, but a week after the disaster began, hopes of finding survivors are slim. Haddjatou Njie reporting for VOD.
Rival Libyan officials ended week-long talks in the Egyptian capital without an agreement on constitutional agreements for elections, the United Nations said Tuesday. 12 lawmakers from Libya's East-based parliament and 12 from the High Council of State, an advisory body in the capital of Tripoli in western Libya, took part in the UN brokered talk that concluded Monday in Cairo. The officials have, however, agreed to reconvene next month after the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of Ramadan. The UN Special Advisor on Libya, Stephen Williams said. Williams said the UN was working to build on a consensus reached earlier this year by the two chambers with the aim of reaching an agreement on the constitutional and legislative framework for parliamentary and presidential elections. The talks came as Libya has been pulled away, with rival government claiming power after tendency step towards unity in the past year following a decade of civil war. The United Nations is extremely concerned that Mali has prevented its investigators from visiting a town where local troops and suspected Russian fighters allegedly killed hundreds of civilians, the world body said on Wednesday. At least 300 men are believed to have been summarily executed during a March 27 to 31st raid on Murad, a town of about 10,000 inhabitants infiltrated by Islamic militants, according to a Human Rights Watch report. Survivors said white mercenaries suspected to be Russian took part in the massacre that sparked international uproar and prompted the UN to open an investigation. Mali has denied the allegation, saying it has conducted a professional operation to attack insurgents in Moral, and that it could carry out its own assessment. We are extremely concerned that Malian authorities have still not granted UN human rights investigators access, UN spokesman Steve Magango said in a statement. Magango said unconfirmed sources suggest the death toll could be as high as 500, mostly civilians. Soldiers also reportedly raped, looted, and arbitrarily detained a number of Moors inhabitants, the statement said. The United Nations mission in Mali said separately on Wednesday that it was concerned by reports of more human rights violations committed by the Malian army, accompanied by a group of foreign militaries during a weekly market in Hombori in northern Mali on Tuesday. Now let's look at the international news. Chinese mining firm MFG has announced that from Wednesday it will suspend operation at its Las Bambas mine in southern Peru due to safety concerns amid ongoing protests. Las Bambas is one of Peru's largest copper mines and accounts for 2% of global copper supplies. MMG took the step after locals entered the property to demand the company pay high financial contributions. The two sides are due to meet for negotiation in the coming days, according to the president of the local mining chamber, SNMPE, Raul Jacobs. 130 people from the Faru Bambas community invaded Las Bambas on 14th April. The protesters, who originally lived on the land in the Apurimac region where the mine now stands before they were relocated, accused the company of failing to meet its social investment commitments, which MMG denies. French President Emmanuel Macron told into his far-right challenger Marine Le Pen about her links with Russia and her plan to ban Muslim women from wearing the hijab in public in a facetious television debate ahead of Sunday's second and final vote for the presidency. The only head-to-head confrontation of the second-round campaign was peppered with appeals of "don't interrupt me," an accusation the other was not up to the job of leading France, a veto holding UN Security Council member and Europe's second largest economy. "Stop mixing everything up," a combative Macron told Le Pen during one heated exchange about France's debt, which, like others, has risen due to pandemic support measures. "Don't lecture me," responded Le Pen, who avoided the pitfalls of the previous encounter in 2017 when her presidential bid unraveled as she mixed up her notes and lost her footing. Polls suggest that Macron, a pro-European centrist, has a growing and significant lead over Le Pen, but the result is expected to be closer than 5 years ago, and both candidates are angling for votes among electors who did not support them in the election's first round on April 10. Civilians still trapped as Mariupol evacuation fails, says Ukraine Deputy Prime Minister. Haddjatou Njie reports.
About 1,000 civilians remain trapped in steel plants where Ukrainian forces are making their last stand in the besieged city of Mariupol, President Zelensky said on Wednesday. Ukraine blamed Russian forces for failing to respect a temporary ceasefire. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson compared negotiating with Russian President Vladimir Putin to dealing with a crocodile as he warned Ukraine it will be hard to negotiate a peace deal with a leader who is so unreliable. Johnson said Putin has made it clear that he wants to take more Ukrainian territory and could launch another assault on the country's capital, Kyiv. How can you negotiate with a crocodile when it has your leg in your jaw? That it is difficult that Ukraine's face, Johnson told reporters on a plane to India for a 2-day visit. It is very hard to see how the Ukrainians can negotiate with Putin now given his manifest lack of good faith. Ukraine has proposed to hold a special round of negotiation with Russia in Mariupol, according to top Kyiv officials. Another key Ukrainian negotiator, David Akremia, said on Telegram that he and Podolyak are ready to arrive in Mariupol to hold talks with the Russian side on the evacuation of our military garrison and civilians. Salanjai reporting for VOD.
The heads of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank warned Wednesday that rising interest rates are squeezing the world's poorest countries as they struggle with the COVID-19 and soaring food prices. There is a huge buildup of debt, especially in the poorest countries, World Bank President David Malpass said in a press conference. As interest rates rise, the debt pressures are mounting on developing countries, and we need to move urgently towards solution. Malpass said the debt crisis is a topic of extensive discussions as this week's spring meetings of the World Bank and IMF, already dominated by other drowning issues including the war in Ukraine, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the slowing global economy. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva told reporters Wednesday that 60% of low-income countries were in or near debt distress, and alarming their holds reaches when their debt payment equal half the size of their national economy. Countries that strain to pay their creditors will also struggle to help their poorest citizens at a time when the Ukraine war is disrupting food shipments and pushing food prices higher. Germany is moving as fast as possible to end the reliance on Russian energy, but it will take time, the country's financial minister has said. Ukraine's President Zelensky has criticized Germany for failing to curb Russian energy import. He described energy payment as blood money. Proceeding from the sale of Russian oil and gas amount to around $1 billion a day, undermining international efforts to put economic pressure on President Vladimir Putin to end the war. The US has already banned Russian oil imports, and the UK plans to phase them out by the end of the year. Although EU countries are more heavily dependent on Russian energy, with Germany currently buying around 25% of its oil and 40% of gas from Russia. That's all we have for you today. Until we come your way again, I am glorious Haddjatou Njie on the VOD Weekly News Recap. Have a good evening and thanks for watching.